He was the most dangerous racist in America. The governor who famously declared, "Segregation now, segregation tomorrow, segregation forever." But the devastating, untold story is how George Wallace's crusade for hate shattered his own family, forcing his 4 children to grow up in the crosshairs of history, navigating the immense shame of his legacy and the profound, private tragedy of their mother's early death. So what truly became of Bobbi, Peggy, George, and Janie, the heirs who had to reconcile their love for their father with the hatred he unleashed upon the world? Welcome. You clicked on this video because you know the man who became the face of resistance to civil rights. But you sense the deeper, more complex story lies with the 4 children who lived behind the podium. In this exhaustive, deep-dive documentary, we will tell the complete, multi-layered story of George and Lurleen Wallace's 4 children. We will explore the life of the eldest, Bobbi Jo, who became the family's quiet matriarch. We will delve into the journey of Peggy Sue, who navigated the political storms with grace. We will uncover the public and private battles of the only son, George Wallace Jr., who followed his father into politics but sought a different path. And we will detail the life of the youngest, Janie, who grew up amidst the chaos of her father's national ambitions and physical paralysis. To bring you this powerful story, we have gone far beyond the history books and the speeches. We have meticulously researched the archives of Alabama politics, analyzed the unique dynamic of having 2 governors as parents, and pieced together the narrative of how this family moved from the center of segregationist rage to a place of reconciliation and forgiveness. This is a deep, unflinching exploration of the burden of history and the power of redemption. Number 4. The eldest daughter, the surrogate mother, Bobbi Jo Wallace Parsons. The story begins with the firstborn, Bobbi Jo. She was old enough to understand the full weight of her father's controversial rise, but her life was defined by a different tragedy: the premature death of her mother, Governor Lurleen Wallace. Bobbi Jo was forced to become the surrogate mother to her younger siblings, sacrificing her own youth to hold the fracturing family together. Born in 1944, Bobbi Jo Wallace was the eldest child. Her childhood coincided with her father's relentless climb up the Alabama political ladder. She witnessed his transformation from a moderate populist to the hardline segregationist who would define an era. But the most significant figure in her life was her mother, Lurleen. In a bizarre political maneuver, when George Wallace was term limited in 1966, he ran his wife Lurleen as a surrogate candidate. Lurleen won, becoming the first female governor of Alabama. However, she was secretly battling uterine cancer. Bobbi Jo, then in her early 20s, became her mother's primary emotional support and confidant. When Lurleen died in office in 1968 at the age of 41, the family was devastated. George Wallace was consumed by his presidential ambitions and was emotionally distant. Bobbi Jo stepped into the void. She helped raise her younger sister Janie, who was only a child. She managed the domestic chaos of a family that was constantly in the public eye, but emotionally hollowed out. Bobbi Jo chose a life of relative privacy compared to her father. She married James Parsons and focused on her family. Her life was a testament to quiet duty. While her father was setting the country on fire with his rhetoric, she was ensuring that the family had a home. Bobbi Jo's untold story is her role as the silent anchor. She absorbed the trauma of her mother's death and her father's absenteeism, providing the stability that allowed her siblings to survive. She passed away in 2015, a woman who lived through history but chose to focus on family. Number 3. The second daughter, the political witness, Peggy Sue Wallace Kennedy. The second daughter, Peggy Sue, grew up in the shadow of the schoolhouse doorstand. She married into a prominent political family, becoming a bridge between the old Alabama and the new. Her journey would lead her to confront her father's legacy directly, eventually walking alongside civil rights leaders in a powerful act of symbolic reconciliation. Born in 1950, Peggy Sue Wallace was a teenager during the height of the civil rights movement. She saw the hate mail, the protests, and the violence that her father's words incited. Unlike her older sister who focused on the domestic sphere, Peggy Sue engaged more directly with the political legacy. She married Mark Kennedy, who would become a justice of the Alabama Supreme Court. This marriage kept her firmly within the state's political elite. However, Peggy Sue's most profound journey was internal. She had to reconcile her love for her father with the reality of the pain he caused to African Americans. In her later years, Peggy Sue became a voice for healing. She famously participated in events commemorating the civil rights movement, including marching across the Edmund Pettus Bridge in Selma, the site of Bloody Sunday, where state troopers under her father's command beat peaceful protesters. By walking hand in hand with the children of civil rights leaders, she offered a powerful visual apology and a statement of change. Peggy Sue's scandal was the burden of her last name. Her untold story is her courage in facing that history head-on. She didn't hide from her father's past. She helped to heal it. She represents the capacity for change and the possibility of redemption for the next generation. Number 2. The only son. The political heir. George Wallace Jr. The only son. Bearing the exact name of the most controversial man in America, George Wallace Jr. faced the most direct pressure. He initially rejected politics for a career in country music, trying to find his own voice, before ultimately accepting the inevitable pull of the family business and entering Alabama politics, where he sought to redefine the name George Wallace. Born in 1951, George Wallace Jr. carried the heaviest burden, the name. From birth, he was expected to follow in his father's footsteps. But as a young man, he sought escape. He loved music. He pursued a career as a country singer, touring and recording, trying to carve out an identity that wasn't tied to segregation or politics. However, the pull of the legacy was too strong. In the 1980s, George Jr. entered politics. He was elected state treasurer of Alabama and later served on the Public Service Commission. His political career was successful but complex. He ran as a Democrat, like his father, but later switched to the Republican Party, reflecting the shifting political landscape of the South. He faced his own controversies, including a highly publicized divorce and questions about his use of campaign funds. But his greatest struggle was navigating the Wallace brand. He tried to present a more moderate, modern version of the name. He was also deeply involved in caring for his father after the 1972 assassination attempt left George Sr. paralyzed and in constant pain. George Jr. witnessed the softening of his father's heart and his eventual apologies to the black community. George Jr.'s untold story is the complexity of being the namesake. He lived the duality of the Wallace legacy, the hate of the 1960s and the redemption of the 1990s. He is the keeper of the complicated history, defending his father's later life transformation while acknowledging the past. Number 1. The youngest daughter, the child of chaos. Janie Wallace Dye. The youngest child, Janie, was just a little girl when her mother died and her father was shot. She grew up in the most chaotic period, raised by siblings and staff, while her father lay in a hospital bed. Her life has been a quest for the normalcy she was denied, a quiet journey of survival away from the political arena. Born in 1961, Janie Wallace was the baby. She was only 7 years old when her mother, Governor Lurleen Wallace, died of cancer. She was only 11 years old when her father was shot 5 times by Arthur Bremer in Maryland during his 1972 presidential campaign. Janie's childhood was defined by trauma. She didn't know the powerful, strutting George Wallace of the early 60s. She knew the grieving widower and the paralyzed, pain-racked man in the wheelchair. She was raised in a governor's mansion that felt more like a hospital or a fortress. Janie chose a life far removed from politics. She married and focused on raising her own children, seeking the stability that was shattered in her own youth. She has rarely spoken publicly, preferring to let her older siblings handle the legacy. Her untold story is the trauma of the innocent, She represents the personal cost of political violence. Her life is a testament to survival, proving that one can emerge from a childhood of gunshots and funerals to build a quiet, loving life. The 4 lives of the Wallace children, spanning tragedy, politics, music, and reconciliation, reveal the extraordinary resilience of a family that lived through the darkest storms of American history. They successfully navigated the hate, the violence, and the redemption of their father's legacy. This theme of a political giant whose life was defined by controversy and tragedy resonates deeply with the saga of another American icon. On this channel previously, we explored the fascinating and tragic story of John F. Kennedy's 3 children. Like the Wallace family, the Kennedy heirs had to navigate assassinations, political pressure, and the immense burden of a famous name. The full, complex, and tragic story of the Kennedy heirs is one you won't want to miss. Click the video on your screen right now to uncover that incredible, untold story. And as always, thank you for watching.